So we've been in this conversation that we've been calling Kingdom Manifesto, and we've been taking a look at this conversation that Jesus has been having about this kingdom, this new reality that he's bringing to humanity. And Jesus talks about this kingdom that he's allowing us to step into more than almost anything else. In fact, most people, when they think about Jesus, they think about how much he talks about what we should or shouldn't do. But the reality is that Jesus rarely talks about religious rules. I know there's like this cultural image of Jesus talking about don't do this and don't do that, and you should be doing this and you shouldn't be doing that, but you really don't find a lot of that in the scriptures. He was more concerned about this new reality that he was inviting us into and what he was bringing us into of what it meant to be human, of what it meant to be fully alive, of what it meant to connect to not just him, but to connect to one another, and how we created this dynamic community. And in this new reality here on earth, everything would change. This is why he could talk on so many different subjects, because it wasn't just a religious conversation. This was a conversation around everything. I remember a few years ago, Marla and I brought this device into our home that changed everything in our reality, and her name is Alexa. And we got our first Alexa on accident because someone didn't want it and they gave it to us. And so I was exploring what you could do with Alexa, and I realized that she could control the lights in your house for you. So I had our recessed lights changed out with smart lights. And at that moment, I realized that I could just sit on the sofa and say, Alexa, turn off the living room, and the lights would turn off. And it was glorious, right? And then I found out I could actually change the colors of the lights. So it quickly moved from just Alexa, turn off the living room, to Alexa, turn the living room cozy. And then we had cozy lights, and then we had morning lights, and then we had TV lights. And then I realized, it's not enough just to have the recessed lights controlled by Alexa, because that's nice, but what else could this thing do? And then I found myself getting annoyed when I had to do things like get up to find the TV remote, or turn on the air conditioner with a remote, or had to, lock the door at night without having to get up. And then I quickly realized, Alexa can do all of this for us. And so over the last 6 years, we have gone through the process of automating our house. And now there's probably not a single function in our house that Alexa doesn't do for us. In fact, at night when I go to bed, this is what it sounds like. Alexa, turn off the living room. Alexa, lock the door. Alexa, turn off the AC. Alexa, turn off the boys' room. Alexa, turn on the music in the bathroom. Alexa, turn the bedroom off. Because she does everything now for us. Now I know for some of you that horrifies you, big government's listening, but if you have a device in your pocket, guess what? Big government's listening. But what I realize is that as soon as we changed this one thing, everything else was irrelevant. It seems silly to have a light switch now. It seems silly to have to get up and turn on your AC. It seems silly to have to turn on the TV, because now everything could change with this new reality. And in the same way, when Jesus brings this new reality, this kingdom to humanity, everything gets upgraded. Everything gets changed. It's no longer like even cool to do the old thing, because it doesn't fit this new reality that he's brought us into. And so he invites us into new attitudes, new realities, new mindsets, new ways of relating to each other. And it is always to elevate and enhance and to bring beauty everywhere that he goes. Which is why Jesus, all throughout this talk that he gives on this mountain, starting in Matthew chapter 5, he's constantly using this phrase, you've heard it said, but now. In other words, there's this old, outdated system of being human that is no longer going to work for you, because there's this new update that's available, this new reality that is going to transform everything. Now, having that said, this morning's conversation can be quite tricky, especially for a communicator like myself who gets to communicate with a very diverse room of a lot of different opinions and thoughts. There are some conversations that Jesus has invited us into around what it means to be fully human, around what it means to elevate one another, that have been warped and used and abused by religious people. And they've turned an invitation into an elevated life into a cold, hard rule. And when you break it, you're bad. And everyone needs to know that you're bad, because that's how we maintain control over people. And then when you keep it, you're good. And you could only be good if you keep the rule. And it turns very quickly into a religious system rather than an invitation to elevate our lives. And in our culture today, nothing brings more hurt, pain, confusion, baggage, past history than conversations on sexuality and marriage. This is where really rubber meets the road, because over the years it's been used to shame and to guilt and to punish and coerce and control. But from my perspective, all the more reason to actually explore what Jesus has to say about it. Because I think when you take a look at what he has to say, it elevates the conversation far beyond a cultural conversation that we find ourselves in, regardless of what side you land on. So in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 27, it says this: "You have heard it said, 'You shall not commit adultery.' But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one part of your body than for your whole body to go to hell." Now, when we have these conversations, especially like the religious cultural conversation, I think the mainstream idea is that God is somehow nauseated by sex and that we just get to manage it somehow. And most of the conversation that people have around this topic is just don't do it. All right, just make sure you don't do it, abstain from it. And here's the reality, is that God actually designed it. And he designed the whole thing, right? There wasn't like oops, this got out of control. He was like, nope, I designed all of this. And when you look at it, it's actually quite a beautiful system. Sex is designed for so many things. At a basic level, it's designed for procreation, right? Now, if you think about this, God could have brought new human beings onto the planet in a plethora of ways, right? We could have just walked up to another and just said, boop, baby, right? But he designs this whole activity around it that produces other human beings in the process. It's designed for bonding. There is like an addictive element that is baked into the cake of it in there. It is actually designed for stress relief. It lowers blood pressure. There's cardiovascular health that is involved into it. In fact, when you go down the line of the benefits of sex, it actually is quite beautiful. So if God designed sex and he designed all of it and then he calls it good, it seems like it has a clear context. That it would be to bond a husband and a wife in a lifelong relationship that would alleviate stress and, if done properly, could produce another human being in the context of this bonded relationship for life. See, when Jesus gives us instructions on what not to do, he's not looking at all the fun stuff and saying, don't do that, right? I think sometimes that's how we have this idea that Jesus is like, what's all the things that people love doing? Let's tell them not to do those things, right? And that seems to be the conversation that we found ourselves in, but he's actually saying that this dynamic has such a powerful context to it, that it has such a powerful design to it, that when it is used in the correct context, it actually produces something beautiful, but when it is misused, it gets you into trouble. It produces all kinds of mischief in relationship. And when you take something like the design of sex and take it outside of its design context, something beautiful can actually create something chaotic. I remember my boys used to watch this song on YouTube, and it would go something like this. It would say, "Do you like ice cream?" "Yes, I do." Right? Good ice cream. And then it would say like, "Do you like lasagna?" "Yes, I do." And then it would say, "Do you like lasagna ice cream?" "No," right? And I think this is the context that we are brought here in this space. It's something really good, right? In its right context. Ice cream, really good. Lasagna, really good. Put them together, really gross. And this is what Jesus invites us into. See, there's actually all kinds of impact that happens when we misuse sex, not even from a religious standpoint, but even from a physiological, biological standpoint. It actually imbalances our neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine when it's misused outside of its correct context. That it actually lessens the activity in our prefrontal cortex, so we don't have as much impulse control outside of that dynamic. It actually damages the brain's ability to form meaningful connections with other people, because we find ourselves making connections that were designed to be lifelong all around us. And the impulsive sexual behavior can actually change your brain's neurocircuitry. So here's something really beautiful that God designed, that God ordained, that he creates a context for, and he's like, use it in its right context. Outside of that, it's actually going to bring chaos, and it's going to be quite damaging to you. Now, here's the thing. When we read this, it seems like Jesus is having a conversation about sex, and yet it is actually about something far bigger. Because he says, you've heard it said, don't commit adultery. Don't have sex outside this context of marriage. And you would think that would be enough. That you would think that would be fine. If that's what he was up to, you would think that would be all he needed to say. Don't do it. But then he actually elevates it to this whole other level. He says, if you actually look at someone lustfully, you've already committed adultery. See, he places the stakes way higher, and it seems like Jesus is quite the prude, right? Like you don't even look at someone, right? Now you're in trouble if you do that. But what if it was exactly the opposite? See, when I talk to people about their relationship with Jesus, what I oftentimes hear is this idea that Jesus is mostly concerned with your good performance for him. That he's mostly concerned with you behaving correctly. Which is why it's easy to read the scriptures and see things like, all right, he doesn't want me to kill people. He doesn't want me to lie to people. He doesn't want me to get freaky outside of marriage. If I don't do that, we're all good, right? If I just perform correctly, then I'll be okay. If we're good and if we perform good, we're in. And if we perform bad, then we're out. If we do all the wrong things, then we're no longer accepted. This is what leads us to just doing the right things to please God. Like if I just perform and do the right activities and don't do the wrong activities, then I'll be accepted by him. If I don't sleep with them, if I don't kill them, if I don't steal from them, if I don't lie to them, I'm good. And so we start relating to God like a math equation. Like if I don't do this and I do this, that equals I'm good with God. That equals now I'm righteous. But Jesus actually elevates this conversation because he's not primarily interested in your performance. He's not actually primarily interested in what you do or don't do. He's actually much more interested in who you are becoming at your core. This is why he says, the old way just says, don't have sex with them. But he said, I actually need you to elevate this conversation because I need you to look at your heart. I need you to take a place at what's taking place here at a core level, how you are relating to them, because you can actually never sleep with someone and allow lust to still drive your life. You can actually never touch another human being and allow lust to still be at the core of who you are. In the same way, when Jesus said, look, like we talked about last week, the old way says just don't kill someone. He elevates it and he says, look, if you're even angry at someone, your attitude, your core, your character, your heart, your essence is actually already driving you towards death. See, what he's saying is, I am not just interested in you doing the right things. I am interested in you becoming the person that you were made to be. And that is a much bigger conversation. And this is why he says, if your eye has caused you to sin, rip them off. If your arms caused you to sin, rip them off. Now, here's the thing. Even those in the room who take the Bible very literally, last time I checked, no one's walking around with a plucked out eyeball. No one's actually chopped off their hands. So what does that mean? See, because this is not a prescription of what we do when we find ourselves in lust, or else we would have a lot of blind, paraplegic 14-year-olds out there, right? See, Jesus says you can rip your eyes out and you can cut your hands off, but guess what? You're still going to have to deal with what's going on in here. You can put all kinds of restraints in place, and you will still have to engage what is taking place at a heart level within you. See, he says, look, you can never look at someone again, you can never touch someone again, and there will still be an issue of the heart to deal with, because it's not about just controlling what your eyes see or controlling what your hands do or don't do or controlling your body. It's an issue of the heart. You know, it's interesting because we live in a time, mostly due to technology and a lot of other factors, but more people are addicted to pornography than any other substance element in the entire world. Statistically, 70% of this room struggles with pornography. And I don't say that out of judgment. I say that as just like a fact. And here's what we do. We think that if we just put parameters around our behavior, then somehow it will change things. And so we say, well, what I need is an accountability partner. Let me tell you something. If you can lie to your wife, you can lie to your accountability partner. And then we do things like, I just need software restrictions on my devices. And people find ways around software restrictions. And people say, well, I just need to work out or take cold showers. And you don't have to do that if you don't want to. But here's the thing. You can change all the externals. And if the internal is out of alignment, I don't care how many accountability partners you have, how much software you put on your computer, how many cold showers you take, you still get to deal with what's taking place at a heart level. See, Jesus is actually less concerned about the externals, and he's more concerned about what's taking place internally within us. James 1:14-15 says, "But each person is tempted when they are dragged away by their own evil desires and enticed. Then, after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, gives birth to death." See, our brokenness is not a matter of externals. It starts internally. And then from there, it moves outwards. We act on it, and it's in the acting on it that it actually creates the death and destruction in our lives. And you can take this concept to almost any arena. We can take it out of sex, and we can put it in almost any arena. You can put this with your finances. See, there's been studies done where they've taken communities, and they've literally said, we're going to take all your money away, and we're going to give everyone the same amount of money over a year period, and then we're going to test and see what happens at the end of that year. And guess what? At the end of that year, almost everyone in those control groups ends up in the almost exact same place than they did when they started. See, because it wasn't about how much money you have or don't have. It has to do with your mindset and your heart and your attitude as to how you relate to resources around you. So you can actually attempt to change the externals, but it doesn't matter when you do not change the internals. Everything returns to how we've trained ourselves internally. You can change your behavior till you're blue in the face, and it will not actually transform your heart. The behavior will persist. See, it's not that Jesus doesn't care what you do. He does. He is concerned with what you do. But what he recognizes is that until your core changes, your behavior will persist. About a year and a half, 2.5 years ago, I had weight loss surgery. I don't really talk about this because most of you are really nosy, and I didn't want people coming up to me after the gathering and having a million conversations. But I had surgery around this, and it was interesting when I was going through this 6-month process leading up to my surgery, I had to go see a therapist twice, which is fine. I go to see a therapist way more than that. But I had to go see this therapist, and at both times when I was with the therapist, all we talked about was my relationship to alcohol. And I'm thinking, this is an odd conversation, right? I'm thinking, shouldn't we be talking about my eating habits or my mindset around food or how I'm going to be exercising? Everything was, what's your family's history around alcohol? How much do you drink? Do you ever tempted to drink? What do you think about drinking? What would you like to drink? It was nothing but alcohol. And finally, after our second session, I said, can I just ask you a question? Why is the only conversation we're having about alcohol? And they said, 90% of people who go through this surgery lose weight and transfer their addiction to alcohol. They said 90% of people who actually no longer can engage this addiction just transfer the addiction to this other thing. Because until you actually deal with the core issues, it leaks out in other places and it moves into other arenas. Jesus continues this conversation around elevating humanity. In Matthew 5:31, he says, "It's been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her victim of adultery. And anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery." Now see, here's another conversation. Marriage was designed for this beautiful picture of what it looks like for us to be in a relationship with Jesus. That it's actually set up where the woman represents the church and the man represents Christ, and we are in this beautiful dynamic relationship with one another, how we serve one another. And in the same way that we are refined in our relationship with Jesus and we are transformed, the same refining takes place in marriage. And Jesus says, look, traditional wisdom says, if it's not fun anymore, Or if you have differences that you cannot reconcile, just go get a slip of paper. We wouldn't want you to be in a marriage that was unfun. Just make sure you go to the courts. Got a paper? No problem. But I love that Jesus then elevates this to a heart issue. He says, look, you can get a divorce over sexual immorality, which also includes physical abuse. Other than that, he says, you get to work this out. You get to reconcile and refine one another in this process. And he elevates marriage to this higher level beyond just a court-ordered paperwork. He says, now you actually get to be in a process where you are refined in the relationship. And for those of you who have been married for a long time, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's an opportunity to stay in the rub, to become the person that you were designed to become. And that cannot happen if you bail when it's simply inconvenient. Now look, I know this is a super sensitive subject. This is one of those subjects that have been used to control and to manipulate and to hurt. And I know that many of you in here have been through divorce, and you have experienced the heart-wrenching results of that. Some of you, it was before you came to faith. Some of you was in the midst of faith. And again, this is not a conversation about who's bad and who's good. I know it's easy to hear it through that context. This is not a conversation of who did it right and who did it wrong. I believe that there is grace for those who have been through the horrific storm of divorce and have come out on the other side. So please don't hear this as condemnation. Please don't hear this as you're bad. If you do, my longings that Jesus would invade that conversation with something other than shame. But if anything, this is an opportunity to notice again how Jesus just elevates everything. He says, look, you don't just get to divorce when it's inconvenient. And this is not behavioral instruction. He's not saying do this or don't do this. He's longing for our hearts to be transformed, to be made like his in the process. And then finally, he gives us this last conversation around what it looks like to hold our word in this reality of the kingdom. In Matthew 5:33-37, it says, again, you have heard it said to the people long ago, don't break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows that you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, for you cannot make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. There's a word that crept into our culture that I hate so much. Thank you, Facebook. And it is this one word that it irritates me. Leslie can let you know. I know she gets to stare at me in the office, and she will tell you, nothing bugs me more than this word, maybe. I hate that word. I hate the word maybe. I do not like it, and its cousins, we'll see, right? Now Facebook doesn't even have maybe anymore. They took away maybe because that was too strong of a word, right? It was too strong to maybe show up somewhere. It was too strong to maybe go somewhere. Now they took away, now they just have interested, right? So it's not even a maybe, it's just a I might be interested, right? Because look, we love to keep our options open, don't we? We love to be able to click that interested button and go, we'll see how I feel that day. We'll see if something better comes up, right? I want to keep my options open because I don't want to commit to anything. The problem in that is that we find ourselves in that mindset of maybe or we'll see or interested, and in that we find ourselves living uncommitted lives. We allow ourselves and our lives to be determined by what we feel in the moment. We allow our lives to be determined by the circumstances that come at us rather than the calling that lives inside of us. We allow our lives to be determined by the weather or the turn of events or the politics or the economy, and we look externally and we allow these elements to determine who we are and what we're doing. Everything from who you are and where you will go and what you do and how you spend your money. And this makes up the texture of our lives and how we relate to our commitment. This is one of the reasons why last year we decided to introduce these intention cards at the beginning of the month. Because I realized that for so many of us, we were just going through life existing We were going through life just engaging things as they came at us rather than saying, this is who I will become, and living life through that committed perspective. We find ourselves living lives void of promise and commitment, and then we wonder why our lives feel stuck at times, or we wonder why there's not momentum, or we wonder why we feel stagnant at times, because how you hold your word determines the future that you live in. How you relate to your commitments and what you say yes to will determine where you step into. It actually makes up the texture of your soul. Just think for a moment. How many of your commitments to other people do you actually keep? Whether you'll be on time or where you'll go or what you'll do, who you'll be for them, the attitudes that you will engage in, the love that you will show, the vulnerability that you will give. You may not say, I promise, or yes, but it's just baked into the relationship. Likewise, how many of your promises or commitments do you keep to yourself? How many commitments of, hey, this is the type of person I'm going to become, or hey, I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to start this new habit, or I'm going to kick this old habit. How many of those do we actually keep to ourselves? Not from a space of judgment, from just a space of, oh, I wonder if this is why my life feels stagnant at times, or why it doesn't feel like I get momentum at times from where I'm heading. And then, on top of this, how many of you play this game, which is a very fun game to play? I get it. Most human beings play this. How many of you play the game of, let's put promises on a scale from big promises to little promises? You know what I'm talking about? Like there's big promises up here, like I will honor and obey and love you to the end of my life. And then there's little promises under here, like I will play Minecraft at 2 o'clock this afternoon with my son Jackson, hypothetically, right? And so we rank our word. These are the big promises that I've made, and these are the small promises that I've made. And the big promises, we'll keep those because those are important promises. But the little promises, I don't know, those are kind of small. They're less important. And again, this is the attitude that Jesus violently interrupts with this conversation. He says, look, you should not have to swear to God to make something important. You should not have to cross your heart, stick a needle in your eye to make something so important that your life will actually be filled with integrity, that when you say yes, you will be there. That when you say yes, I'm becoming this, you will become it. That when you say yes, I am cutting this out of my life, it gets cut out. When it says yes, I will start this new habit, you start the new habit. And the yes means yes, and your no means yo, and anything else, your universe starts to unravel. See, because this is a conversation about who you are becoming. And Jesus says, look, you can certainly relate to your word like a maybe, or a we'll see, or a interested. But when you do that, you actually devalue what it means to be human in his eyes in this kingdom. That in this kingdom, when you say yes, you hold your integrity. And it moves you into the future that you were called to step into. How we hold our word to our kids, to our family, to our friends, to our work, to our physical bodies, to our spiritual lives. It matters deeply. And again, you may not have to take an oath, but there are all kinds of agreements that we come into all the time. And Jesus elevates to this new level. He says, stop playing this big, small game. Stop saying, oh, well, I didn't swear to God about it, so it's not a big deal. He just says, live a committed life. That when you say yes, it's a yes. And when you say no, it's a no. Anything else is insufficient. See, at face value, these conversations, they just look like a conversation about the ethics of sex, divorce, and our word. In fact, you could almost take this as a textbook class in ethics and just talk about, here's all the things that Jesus wants you to do, and here's all the things that he doesn't want you to do, and just behave for him. But when you dive deeper into these conversations, it's this powerful conversation about the reality of your soul, of what's taking place at a core level. And he asks us these deeper conversations within this. Are you willing to look courageously inward as to how you're relating to other people? It may not even be a lust conversation for you, but it may be that there are people in your life that you use. It could be there are people in your life that you overlook, And then you simply take advantage of them in the overlooking. You may not get a divorce, but it could be that you relate to people flippantly, in and out of relationship. It doesn't really matter. It could be that in your oaths that you give, that you have been living a maybe life. You've been living a we'll see life. You've been living a I'm interested life, and you wonder why I can't get traction in this. And Jesus is saying, are you willing to be those who no longer settle for just doing the right thing to please God? Are you willing to give up just the, hey, if I don't do this and I do this, then I'm good and now I'm righteous? Are you willing to elevate those things that discipline your life, to elevate what it means to be human and to step into a relationship with Jesus? And there is this temptation, even in this, of transforming our hearts into a performance. Because it's easy to hear this and go, all right, what do I need to do to transform my heart? Now I need to go make a list this week, and I need to get a schedule together, and I need to go figure out all the things. We go there so quickly. And see, here's why I think Jesus invites us into this new perspective, beyond just what we can do for him and how we can perform for him, is that we are incapable of transforming our own hearts. We are incapable of washing ourselves clean, of renewing our mind. We are incapable of removing the lust and removing the self-gratification and removing the maybe and the maybe interested in our lives. And it actually requires us to step into a relationship with the God who says, I would love to come and transform who you are at your core. And as he transforms who you are at your core, it then translates outward. Suddenly you will find yourself doing new things and releasing old habits, not because it's the right thing to do, but because it no longer fits the internal narrative. It no longer fits the essence of your soul. There's this new way of being human that comes out of you because you've stepped into the kingdom of God with the King of Kings who longs to transform you. See, this is the beautiful thing. None of this is about you doing the right thing. It's about connecting to the God of righteousness who gifts that to you. And in that, you are transformed. See, this requires us actively and passionately choosing Jesus every time. Every time we're tempted to fall back into, well, let me just perform for you. Every time we're tempted to, let me just back out because it's not comfortable. Every time we're tempted to go back on our word and to live uncommitted lives, he is the one that we look to transform us. He is the one that we call to as our source. And that translates then to our external world. And as you pursue him, he will elevate within you what it means to be human. And here's the beautiful thing. As you are elevated, now the way that you relate to one another gets elevated as well. All of this has to do with how we relate to other people. And as you are transformed, he uses you as a transformed being to be a transforming agent in the world around you, connected to his spirit, connected to his power, continually being transformed and elevated into the person that he dreams for you to become. Would you just close your eyes for a moment? I want to just first say that if there are those of you here that hear this conversation and there is even an ounce of shame that comes up around things that you've done or didn't do, would you just release that right now? The last thing that I want, and certainly that Jesus longs for, is for you to walk away and go, gosh, I messed up. I'm such a screw up. If anything, Jesus brought you here today to go, wow, what an opportunity for grace and for something brand new. And for those of you here this morning that do not yet know Jesus, I'm just telling you, this life cannot be lived apart from him. It is him that transforms your heart. It is him that removes lust. It is him that removes all of the comfort over the commitment. It is him that transforms your life into saying yes every single time. And if you're here this morning and you have not yet connected to Jesus, I want you this moment to connect to him. And it's so simple. He doesn't even want you to do anything. He just wants you to give him your heart, to give him your life, to say, I'm in. And if that's you this morning and you're like, man, I want to connect to Jesus maybe for the first time or the first time in a long time, would you just raise your hand? No one's looking around. Yeah, who else? All over the room. Yep, 4, 5, 6. Awesome. I just want you to pray this prayer. It's so simple. I just want you to pray, Jesus, I give you my life. That's it. No performance. Just, Jesus, I give you my life. And if you would just say that to him and mean it, he will come right now and meet you. Jesus, I ask that you would meet these individuals right now, and that you would flood their hearts and their minds with your spirit, that they would know that they are loved. God, that you would invade them with your voice, that it would be louder than every other voice, and that you would elevate them right now of what it means to be fully alive, fully human, fully connected to you, because you are the God who has come for us. Now, we're gonna be baptizing some people here in just a minute, which is very exciting. We love doing that here at Humanity. And I'm just gonna say this, if you're here this morning and you have not been baptized, baptism is this external demonstration of what's taking place inside of us. It's literally this water grave where we're saying, I'm dying to my old self and I'm coming up brand new. I'm releasing everything that I have and I'm trusting him. If you have not been baptized today, we want to baptize you. If you've made a decision to follow Jesus, today's your day. Now look, no excuses. We have cool t-shirts out there that you get to take home. We have shorts, we have a towel. I don't care if your makeup's done, you can go home and get your makeup done again, all right? Don't let anything stop you this morning. But is there anyone here who has not been baptized yet that's like, today, I'm gonna ask you to just raise your hand if you're doing something crazy, like, today I wanna get baptized in this room, anyone in this room? All right, and if you want to, on the way out, there's gonna be a table, all right? And you'll see there's giant shirts that say Made New. There will be someone there that you can connect with, and we would love to just get you a t-shirt, get you geared up, and get us ready to get baptized, because today we want that to be your day. But having that said, we believe baptisms are a huge thing here at Humanity Church. It is a milestone in someone's spiritual journey. It is a moment where we celebrate with people who have said, I'm all in with Jesus. And we are called to do this publicly. And one of the things that I love about getting to do baptisms here at the Union is we get to do them right out on Gary Avenue in front of the whole city, right? It's so cool. And so here's what I wanted to do. In just a minute, I'm going to say go, and I'm going to ask you to get up and do nothing but just go right out front, all right? Don't get your kids, all right? Let them be there for a little bit, all right? Don't get your kids. Let's all go out there, and together, let's celebrate as these individuals make a decision to follow Jesus. One of the things that I'm super excited about today is we actually have 2 of our kids getting baptized today, and they have made their own decision to do that, which is so awesome. So let's stand up. Let's head right outside. Don't go get coffee. Don't go to the barber shop. Let's just go out there for like 5 minutes and celebrate these baptisms.